The press conference had been scheduled for weeks, and the room was packed. Dozens of reporters filled the seats, their eyes locked on the podium where Pam Bondi stood. Cameras flashed, news anchors whispered into microphones, and political analysts prepared their takes. The air was thick with tension, the kind that only comes when powerful words are about to be spoken. Bondi had faced tough crowds before. As the former Attorney General of Florida, she was no stranger to controversy. She had battled high-profile cases, stood firm in political firestorms, and never backed down from a fight. But today felt different. Today, there was an energy in the room that she couldn't quite place. She adjusted the microphone, took a breath, and began. Thank you all for being here. I know there are a lot of concerns about the future, and I want to address them head-on. She spoke confidently, laying out her vision for policies that she believed would strengthen the country. She talked about law and order, economic stability, and the need for strong leadership. But as she continued, a voice rose from the back of the room. Ms. Bondi, I served this country for 20 years. I fought in battles most Americans can't even imagine. And now, I come home to see my brothers and sisters in uniform struggling, homeless, jobless, forgotten. What are you going to do about it? The room fell silent. Every camera turned toward the man who had spoken. He was standing now, his posture rigid, his voice filled with raw emotion. He wore a jacket adorned with military patches, his face lined with years of hardship. A veteran. Pam Bondi didn't hesitate. She stepped away from the podium, walking directly toward him. What's your name? She asked, her voice softer but steady. Daniel Carter, U.S. Marine Corps, retired, he replied. She nodded. Daniel, first and foremost, thank you for your service. I don't need thanks, he shot back. I need action. A murmur spread through the crowd. Bondi had been in tough spots before, but this was different. This wasn't a political opponent or a journalist trying to trip her up. This was a man who had risked his life for the country she claimed to love. And he wasn't backing down. She could have given a rehearsed response, the kind filled with careful wording and polished rhetoric. Instead, she did something no one expected. I hear you, she said, and I won't pretend to understand what you've been through. But tell me, what do you think needs to be done? The veteran blinked, caught off guard. He had been prepared for deflection, not direct engagement. He hesitated for a moment before answering. Veterans need housing. They need medical care that doesn't make them jump through 100 hoops. They need jobs that don't treat them like they're broken. We were strong enough to fight. We're strong enough to work. Bondi turned back to the audience. Did you hear that? Action, not words. And Daniel, I'll tell you something right now. After this press conference, you and I are going to sit down. Not in front of the cameras, not for political points. We are going to talk about solutions, and then I'm going to show you that I mean business. The room erupted. Some reporters whispered in disbelief. Others scribbled notes furiously. This wasn't how these moments usually went. Daniel studied her for a long moment. You really mean that? Bondi extended her hand. Let's find out. Slowly, he reached out and shook it. The moment was electric. It wasn't just a handshake. It was a challenge, a promise. At that moment, Pam Bondi had done something no one expected. She had turned a confrontation into a conversation, and, that more than anything, left the entire room stunned. Would you like any refinements to the script? The cameras continued to flash, capturing the moment that had shifted the entire tone of the press conference. Reporters who had come expecting the usual political back and forth now found themselves witnessing something rare, genuine engagement. Pam Bondi didn't return to the podium right away. She held on to the veteran's handshake for a moment longer, looking him straight in the eye. I'm not here to make empty promises, Daniel, she said. If I tell you something, I intend to follow through. I know that veterans like you don't need lip service. You need real change. So tell me, if you could sit down with lawmakers right now, what's the first thing you'd ask them to fix? Daniel didn't hesitate this time. The VA system, it's broken. I've had friends wait months, even years, for treatment they should have gotten immediately. Some didn't make it. You want to help veterans? Fix that first. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Reporters whispered to one another, already crafting headlines. Bondi nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "You're right," she said. "That's unacceptable. And if you have the time, I'd like you to help me put together a plan. Not as a politician telling a veteran what's best for him, but as a veteran showing me what real solutions look like." Daniel studied her, his expression skeptical but intrigued. "You're serious?" "As serious as the people still waiting for care," Bondi replied. The silence in the room was deafening. This wasn't the typical exchange between a politician and a frustrated citizen. There was no defensiveness, no evasion, only direct conversation. A reporter near the front stood up. "Ms. Bondi, are you saying you're willing to work directly with veterans like Mr. Carter to craft policy changes?" "Yes," she said without hesitation, "because they know what needs fixing better than anyone in Washington." Another reporter quickly followed up. "This is a bold move. Are you prepared for the backlash from the bureaucracy that benefits from the status quo?" Bondi turned toward the cameras. "If standing with veterans instead of politicians brings backlash, so be it. I didn't get into public service to play it safe. I got into it to make a difference. If that means shaking up the system, then let's shake it." The veteran let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "I never expected to hear that from a politician." "I'm not here as a politician right now," Bondi replied. "I'm here as someone who believes our country owes you and every veteran more than just words." A round of applause broke out in the back of the room. It started small, hesitant, but grew as more attendees, some of them veterans themselves, stood in support. Daniel looked around at the people now clapping, then back at Bondi. "All right," he said. "Let's see if you mean what you say." Bondi extended her hand once more, sealing a promise that everyone in that room would remember. This wasn't just another press conference, it was the beginning of something bigger. The headlines the next day were explosive. Pam Bondi challenges system to fix VA crisis, calls on veterans to lead the charge. News stations replayed the clip of her walking off the stage, sitting down with Daniel Carter in the front row, and pulling out a notepad to start writing down real ideas. But for Daniel, it wasn't about the media attention. It was about finally being heard. And for Bondi, it was about proving that some moments aren't about politics. They're about people. Would you like the script to continue further, or does this capture the full moment you envisioned? In the days following the press conference, the media buzzed with discussions about Pam Bondi's unexpected engagement with veteran Daniel Carter. Pundits debated whether her actions were a genuine commitment to veterans or a calculated political coup. Social media platforms lit up with hashtags like .BondiAnnCarter, .Veterans First, and Real Change. True to her word, Bondi's office reached out to Daniel the very next day. They scheduled a meeting, not in a grand office or a public venue, but in a modest conference room in a local community center. Bondi wanted this to be a working session, free from the distractions of politics and media. Daniel arrived early, carrying a worn notebook filled with his observations, ideas, and the stories of fellow veterans. He was met by Bondi, who greeted him warmly. "Thank you for coming, Daniel," she said. "I appreciate you taking the time to do this." Daniel nodded. "I just hope this leads to something real." They sat down, and for hours they delved into the issues plaguing veterans. Daniel spoke of the bureaucratic red tape that often delayed critical medical treatments, the lack of support for mental health, and the challenges of transitioning back into civilian life. "Many of us feel abandoned," Daniel confessed. "We were trained to be strong, to handle anything, but coming home, it's a different kind of battle." Bondi listened intently, taking notes and asking questions. She was particularly struck by the stories of veterans who had fallen through the cracks, those who had given so much yet received so little in return. These are systemic issues, she acknowledged, but that doesn't mean they're insurmountable. With the right approach, we can make meaningful changes. Together, they brainstormed actionable solutions, streamlining the VA process, implementing a more efficient system to reduce wait times for medical appointments and treatments, mental health support, establishing dedicated mental health units within VA hospitals, staffed with professionals trained specifically in veterans' issues, job transition programs, creating partnerships with corporations to provide job training and placement services tailored for veterans. Affordable housing initiatives, working with local governments to develop housing solutions that cater to veterans, ensuring they have a safe place to call home. By the end of the meeting, they had outlined a comprehensive plan. Bondi promised to take these proposals to the appropriate channels, advocating for their implementation. Over the next few weeks, Bondi's office released updates on the progress of these initiatives. She held additional meetings with veterans groups, healthcare professionals, and policymakers to gather more insights and build a coalition of support. Daniel was invited to speak at several of these gatherings, sharing his experiences and emphasizing the urgency of the reforms. His candidness resonated with many, putting a human face to the statistics and reports. The media continued to follow the story closely. Some critics remained skeptical, questioning the feasibility of the proposed changes and Bondi's motivations. However, many praised the collaborative effort, viewing it as a refreshing departure from partisan politics. One evening during a televised interview, Bondi was asked about the challenges she faced in pushing these reforms. Change is never easy, she admitted. There are entrenched systems and long-standing practices that resist transformation. But when you hear the stories of veterans like Daniel, when you see the struggles they endure after serving our country, it becomes clear that we cannot accept the status quo. We have a moral obligation to do better. Daniel, watching the interview from his modest apartment, felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time in a long while, he believed that things might actually change. Months passed, and while not all the proposed reforms were implemented immediately, there were noticeable improvements. Pilot programs for streamlined VA processes were launched in select states, mental health support units received increased funding, and several corporations began specialized job training programs for veterans. Bondi and Daniel remained in contact, regularly updating each other on the progress and brainstorming further improvements. Their partnership became a symbol of what could be achieved when individuals from different walks of life come together with a shared purpose. The press conference that had started it all was now seen as a turning point, a moment when words were transformed into action, and a nation's promise to its veterans was reaffirmed. And while there was still much work to be done, the unexpected alliance between Pam Bondi and Daniel Carter served as a testament to the power of genuine engagement and the enduring spirit of those who serve. As the months turned into years, the initiatives born from that fateful press conference began to take root nationwide. Veterans reported shorter wait times at VA hospitals, more accessible mental health services, and increased employment opportunities tailored to their unique skill sets. Daniel became an advocate, traveling across the country to share his story and inspire other veterans to voice their concerns and solutions. He collaborated with various organizations, pushing for continuous improvements and ensuring that the momentum they had built did not wane. Bondi, on her part, continued to champion veterans' causes within the political arena. She leveraged her position to secure funding, enact legislation, and hold agencies accountable for their treatment of veterans. Her unexpected response at that press conference had not only stunned everyone, but had also set in motion a series of events that led to tangible change. Their story became a case study in leadership courses, illustrating the impact of empathy, active listening, and collaboration. It showed that when leaders step out from behind their podiums and engage directly with the people they serve, remarkable transformations can occur. In the end, the bond formed between Pam Bondi and Daniel Carter was more than just a partnership. It was a beacon of hope, Months turned into years, and the initiative sparked by that pivotal press conference began to take root nationwide. Veterans reported shorter wait times at VA hospitals, more accessible mental health services, and increased employment opportunities, tailored to their unique skill sets. Daniel became an advocate, traveling across the country to share his story and inspire other veterans to voice their concerns and solutions. He collaborated with various organizations, pushing for continuous improvements and ensuring that the momentum they had built did not wane. Pam Bondi, on her part, continued to champion veterans' causes within the political arena. She leveraged her position to secure funding, enact legislation, and hold agencies accountable for their treatment of veterans. Her unexpected response at that press conference had not only stunned everyone, but had also set in motion a series of events that led to tangible change. Their story became a case study in leadership courses, illustrating the impact of empathy, active listening, and collaboration. It showed that when leaders step out from behind their podiums and engage directly with the people they serve, remarkable transformations can occur. In the end, the bond formed between Pam Bondi and Daniel Carter was more than just a partnership. It was a beacon of hope. As time passed, the collaboration between Pam Bondi and Daniel Carter continued to yield positive outcomes. The Department of Veterans Affairs underwent significant reforms, many of which were directly influenced by the insights gathered from veterans like Daniel. These changes included the implementation of a nationwide electronic health record system, which streamlined medical histories and reduced redundancy in treatments. Additionally, mental health became a focal point. Recognizing the unique challenges faced by returning service members, specialized counseling centers were established in various communities. These centers offered support not only to veterans, but also to their families, acknowledging the broader impact of military service on loved ones. Employment initiatives also saw a boost. Corporations were incentivized through tax breaks to hire veterans, leading to a noticeable decrease in veteran unemployment rates. Entrepreneurial programs were introduced, providing veterans with the resources and training needed to start their own businesses. Throughout these developments, Bondi and Daniel remained in close contact. They co-hosted town hall meetings, bringing together policymakers, veterans, and community members to discuss ongoing challenges and brainstorm solutions. Their partnership became emblematic of what could be achieved when public officials genuinely listened to their constituents. The media continued to highlight their journey, with documentaries and news segments showcasing the transformative power of their alliance. Bondi's reputation as a dedicated public servant was solidified, and Daniel's advocacy work earned him accolades from various veterans organizations. In classrooms across the nation, their story was taught as an example of effective civic engagement. Students learned about the importance of voicing concerns, the potential of collaborative problem-solving, and the profound impact of empathy in leadership. As the years went by, the initial spark from that press conference evolved into a sustained movement. Veterans felt more supported, communities became more informed, and the nation took significant strides toward honoring its commitments to those who had served. In the end, the unexpected encounter between Pam Bondi and Daniel Carter not only changed their lives, but also brought about lasting change for countless others. It served as a testament to the power of genuine dialogue, the importance of accountability, and the enduring spirit of those who dedicate themselves